Whatever Ensol was or wasn't, it had one almost universal property. Let's begin with the story of a retired 96-year-old nurse whose mother-in-law and a friend were treated with Ensol.
So since Mrs. Lockett and Mrs. Bruce were good friends, I used to go to see Mrs. Bruce occasionally. They both had cancer at the same time. So I used to go to see Mrs. Bruce, and they were both taking Ensol. She was in the house right until she died. She didn't leave at home. And so Mrs. Bruce was also getting Ensol, and we absolutely knew that it relieved the pain because they had no pain, no need for narcotics of any kind.
Good.
Dr. Connell himself, at first he didn't say too much about it, but then as I got to know him and we got talking, he would talk about it and then admitted that he was taking it himself regularly to help the course of his disease and ease his pain and suffering. He knew he had a terminal illness, which is usually quite painful, but he did not seem to be suffering too much throughout his illness. And he felt this was due to the Ensol, and I know many others felt that too, because they'd seen so many other patients with the same illness who had a lot more pain than he appeared to be having.
Now, here's the Henry Connell Research Foundation, which ran out of cash. And in 1964, Henry Connell died, full of cancer. But his physician, which was Ford Connell, regarded it as something of a miracle that he had, with so much cancer, there should have been so little pain. And mind you, Henry Connell was dealing with people who were already dying. This is the point. He just didn't have the kind of running chance. So anyway, Ford Connell said there must have been something in Ensol after all.
While he was in the terminal stage of cancer himself, he kept some samples of Ensol, and he had considerable pain relief in his final days and this was one of the dominant effects of the Ensol. The first thing I noticed was reduction of pain. Well, in some cases they had complete remission.
Another thing I wanted to mention, that most of the cases that were referred to him were very terminal. Very terminal. They had gone through everything that was available at that particular time.
Yeah.
So, it was difficult. I mean, any relief they got was, to me, wonderful.
Well, there you have it. The story of Ensol and its sad demise. During the research for this program, we discovered several similar cases where the establishment quashed the development of a promising treatment by outright banishment or intrigue, suggesting the product was useless or even harmful. Some questions remain. How did a reputable laboratory produce a contaminated vial of Ensol? It is interesting to note that Jonas Salk, developer of the first polio vaccine, also experienced a faulty batch during his controversy with Albert Sabin, which put his program in jeopardy. Why was no legal action taken by the survivors of the victims of the Florida tragedy against the laboratory that produced the contaminated serum?